Ma'am, I'm calling security. People like you clearly don't understand how premier banking works. Valencia Sterling stood motionless at the marble counter of First National's Platinum Wealth Management floor. Her casual Friday jeans and sneakers had triggered an immediate response from teller Jessica Morrison, whose manicured finger hovered over the security alert button. The 42-year-old woman had simply asked to access her account, nothing more. Yet 3 staff members now circled her like she'd announced a robbery. These real-life stories of discrimination happen daily across America, but this particular encounter would reshape an entire banking system. Manager Derek Phillips approached with exaggerated authority. "This floor requires a minimum balance of $500,000, he announced loudly enough for other customers to hear. Valencia checked her watch. 10 minutes until her next call. Have you ever been judged by your appearance in the most humiliating way possible, only to discover the person dismissing you had no idea who they were really talking to? 20 minutes earlier, Valencia had walked through First National's revolving glass doors with the confidence of someone who belonged everywhere. The Meridian Avenue branch buzzed with typical Friday afternoon energy. Customers lined up at standard teller windows, while the elevator to the exclusive wealth management floor remained relatively quiet. She pressed the button for the 15th floor. The elevator's polished steel reflected her understated appearance: dark jeans, white cotton shirt, comfortable sneakers. No designer logos or flashy jewelry, just a woman who valued substance over status symbols. The platinum floor opened into a different world. Cream marble stretched across the lobby. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over leather seating areas where clients discussed 7-figure portfolios. This environment typically welcomed her in tailored suits, not Friday casual wear. Jessica Morrison glanced up from her computer terminal. Her perfectly styled blonde hair framed a face that immediately shifted from professional smile to subtle suspicion. The 26-year-old teller had worked this floor for 3 years, developing an eye for distinguishing legitimate clients from those who wandered up from lower floors. "Can I help you find something?" Jessica's tone carried barely concealed condescension. "I need to access my account, please." Valencia approached the counter with measured steps. Jessica's eyes swept over Valencia's casual attire. "Ma'am, this is our private wealth management division. Regular banking services are available on the ground floor." "I understand. I bank here." The teller's laugh was sharp. "Our clients don't typically dress so—" She paused, searching for diplomatic phrasing. "Casually." Valencia placed her ID on the marble counter. "I'd appreciate your assistance with my account." Jessica barely glanced at the identification. Instead, she looked past Valencia toward the elevator, as if expecting security to appear. "I'll need to verify your account status. What's your minimum monthly balance?" "I'd prefer to discuss specifics privately." "Right." Jessica's tone dripped skepticism. She turned to colleague Sarah Chen, speaking loudly enough for nearby customers to overhear. "Some people think they can just walk in here and demand service." Derek Phillips emerged from his corner office, drawn by the commotion. The branch manager's 30-year career had trained him to spot potential problems before they escalated. A casually dressed black woman insisting on premium services triggered every red flag in his mental checklist. His experience managing this exclusive floor had taught him to distinguish between genuine wealth and attempted fraud through subtle behavioral cues. "Is there a problem here?" Derek positioned himself between Valencia and the teller station, his body language establishing territorial authority. "This lady claims to have an account on our floor," Jessica explained with theatrical exasperation, her voice carrying just enough volume to alert other customers to the developing situation. Derek studied Valencia with the practiced eye of someone accustomed to making quick character assessments. Her calm demeanor struck him as suspicious, rather than dignified. Legitimate clients became agitated when questioned about their credentials. This woman's composure suggested rehearsed deception, the kind of calculated performance he'd witnessed from sophisticated scammers who researched banking procedures before attempting elaborate frauds. "Ma'am, I need to see multiple forms of identification and proof of address. His voice carried administrative authority. Our compliance requirements are very strict. Valencia checked her watch again. I have exactly 8 minutes before my next appointment. Could we expedite this process? 8 minutes? Derek chuckled. Premium account verification requires thorough documentation. If you're in a hurry, perhaps the express teller downstairs would better suit your needs. A young customer named Marcus Williams had been live streaming his banking visit when the confrontation began. His phone camera captured Jessica's eye rolls and Derek's condescending gestures. The viewer count climbed steadily as comments flooded in. Y'all seeing this discrimination happening live? Marcus whispered to his camera. This is exactly why we need to document everything. Other customers began noticing the unusual situation. An elderly white woman turned in her leather chair, watching with frank curiosity. Two businessmen paused their conversation, phones discreetly recording. Valencia opened her purse, a understated Hermes bag that Jessica failed to recognize despite its $15,000 retail value. Inside, multiple black American Express Centurion cards nested alongside standard credit cards, each representing unlimited spending power that Jessica couldn't fathom. The cards bore Valencia's name in raised platinum lettering, but their significance remained invisible to staff members who had already formed conclusions based on appearance rather than evidence. Her phone buzzed insistently with a calendar reminder. Board meeting, First National Quarterly Review, 2:00 p.m. The notification displayed additional context. Quarterly performance analysis, branch restructuring decisions, executive leadership assessment. Valencia glanced at the screen, noting that her scheduled evaluation of this exact branch was proceeding exactly as planned, though not in the manner anyone expected. She returned her attention to Derek with the same measured composure that had carried her through countless boardroom negotiations and corporate crises. I understand your position completely. Verification procedures protect everyone involved in financial transactions. Derek interpreted her compliance as confirmation of guilt rather than recognition of professional courtesy. His 30 years of banking experience had taught him that legitimate clients fought back aggressively when their credentials were questioned. This woman's gracious acceptance of increasingly unreasonable demands proved she was attempting some elaborate scam designed to exploit the bank's customer service protocols. I'm going to need you to step aside while I contact our security department, he announced with growing confidence. We've had several incidents recently with individuals attempting sophisticated fraudulent transactions using stolen identities and forged documentation. Valencia's expression remained perfectly neutral, but something flickered behind her eyes. Not anger or frustration, but something closer to professional recognition. She'd witnessed this exact scenario dozens of times before, though always from the perspective of someone reviewing incident reports and disciplinary recommendations rather than experiencing the discrimination firsthand. The irony wasn't lost on her that she was now living through the very situations she'd been working to eliminate through corporate policy changes. Jessica leaned toward her computer, fingers flying across the keyboard. I'm documenting this entire interaction for our incident report. Ma'am, please state your full name and social security number for verification purposes. The live stream viewer count hit 1,500. Comments ranged from outrage to support, with several viewers sharing their own banking discrimination stories. Marcus adjusted his camera angle to capture the full scene. 6 minutes remaining, Valencia said quietly, checking her watch one final time. Derek's confidence grew with each passing moment. Experience taught him that genuine threats to branch security came from agitated individuals, not calm women in casual clothes. This situation felt like performance art, someone testing the system for social media content or potential lawsuit material. Ma'am, you're causing a disturbance. Either provide the requested documentation immediately, or I'll need to ask you to leave voluntarily. Valencia nodded slowly. That seems reasonable. Let me make one quick phone call first. She reached for her phone with the same measured composure she'd maintained throughout the encounter. Derek watched with growing satisfaction, confident he'd successfully identified and managed a potential security threat. The black stories that shape America often pivot on moments exactly like this, when assumptions collide with reality in ways that reveal deeper truths about power, perception, and the distance between appearance and authority. Valencia's phone call began with professional courtesy that carried an undertone of absolute authority. "Margaret, it's Valencia. Yes, I'm at the Meridian branch now conducting the comprehensive evaluation we discussed during yesterday's executive planning session." Derek's eyebrows lifted slightly as he processed the woman's unexpectedly sophisticated vocabulary and confident tone. The language pattern struck him as unusual, but he'd witnessed countless attempts at intimidation through elaborate fake phone calls. Sophisticated scammers often researched corporate terminology and executive communication styles, using psychological manipulation tactics to pressure staff into bypassing established security protocols and verification procedures. "Ma'am, please end your call and focus on providing the requested documentation," he interrupted loudly. Valencia continued speaking. "I understand. Please prepare Protocol 7 documentation for immediate implementation." She paused, listening. "Yes, the full restructure package." Jessica rolled her eyes dramatically for the benefit of watching customers. "Protocol 7? Is that from some movie?" She turned to Sarah Chen. "These people watch too much television." The live stream audience had grown to over 3,000 viewers. Marcus Williams adjusted his camera angle while whispering commentary. "This manager is about to learn something today. Y'all can feel it coming, right?" Comments flooded the screen. "She's way too calm. Something's up." That phone call sounded real, though. Manager's about to get humbled. Derek's confidence remained absolutely unshaken despite the increasingly professional nature of Valencia's responses. 30 years in banking had exposed him to every conceivable fraud attempt, from simple check-kiting schemes to elaborate identity theft operations involving multiple accomplices and sophisticated documentation. He'd learned to recognize the psychological patterns employed by sophisticated scammers, who often maintained composure under pressure, using carefully rehearsed emotional manipulation tactics designed to make staff members feel guilty for following proper security protocols. This woman's calculated calmness and professional vocabulary actually reinforced his suspicions rather than alleviating them. Genuine customers became visibly agitated when their banking privileges were questioned, demanding to speak with supervisors and threatening to close accounts. Her gracious acceptance of increasingly unreasonable verification demands suggested someone who had extensively researched customer service procedures and was attempting to exploit staff members' desire to provide excellent service. "Security is en route," he announced with satisfaction, pulling out his own phone to document what he believed would become a textbook example of attempted banking fraud. "I'm recording this entire incident for corporate review and potential law enforcement involvement." Valencia concluded her call with the same quiet efficiency that characterized all her professional communications. "Understood, Margaret. Please proceed with the comprehensive restructuring protocols we discussed during yesterday's strategic planning session." She returned the phone to her purse with deliberate care and checked her watch with the precision of someone accustomed to managing multiple high-stakes meetings simultaneously. 4 minutes remaining until my next scheduled appointment begins." 4 minutes until what exactly? Derek demanded, his voice carrying a mixture of skepticism and growing irritation at what he perceived as continued attempts at psychological manipulation. "Until my next appointment begins," Valencia replied, with the same measured tone she'd maintained throughout the encounter. Derek's frustration peaked as he realized this woman was maintaining her performance despite obvious exposure. "Ma'am, you're creating an artificial timeline designed to pressure our staff into bypassing established security procedures. That's a classic manipulation tactic used by individuals attempting fraudulent transactions in financial institutions." A security guard named Robert Martinez approached from the elevator. The 45-year-old veteran had worked building security for 8 years, responding to countless disputes. His presence usually de-escalated situations through sheer physical authority. "What's the situation here?" Robert's voice carried professional neutrality. Derek gestured toward Valencia. This individual is refusing to provide proper identification for account access. She's been disruptive and is now making mysterious phone calls that appear designed to intimidate staff. Robert studied Valencia's composed demeanor. Something felt off about the entire scene. Legitimate troublemakers typically showed agitation when security arrived. This woman displayed the calm confidence of someone accustomed to authority. "Ma'am, can you provide identification as requested?" Robert asked gently. Valencia handed over her driver's license. "Of course." Robert examined the ID carefully. "Valencia Sterling, Beacon Hill address." He looked up. "That's a nice neighborhood. Thank you." Derek snatched the license from Robert's hands. Address means nothing. Identity theft is sophisticated these days. He squinted at the document. This could easily be fraudulent. The elderly customer who'd been watching from her chair finally spoke up. "Young man, that's quite enough. The woman has been nothing but polite." "Ma'am, please don't interfere with banking security procedures," Derek replied sharply. Another customer, a businessman in an expensive suit, pulled out his phone to record. "This is getting ridiculous. She's done nothing wrong." Jessica became defensive. "We're following standard verification protocols. High-value accounts require additional security measures." "High value?" The businessman laughed. "You haven't even checked her account yet." Sarah Chen, the youngest teller, had remained quiet during the confrontation. Something nagged at her memory as she studied Valencia's face. The woman looked familiar, though she couldn't place where she'd seen her before. 2 minutes, Valencia announced, glancing at her watch again. Derek's frustration peaked. "Ma'am, you're creating an artificial timeline to pressure our staff. That's a classic manipulation tactic used by individuals attempting fraudulent transactions." "I'm simply managing my schedule." "What appointment could possibly be more important than resolving a potential banking fraud?" Valencia's slight smile contained layers Derek couldn't interpret. "A quarterly board review." "Board review for what company?" "This one." The response hung in the air like a challenge no one understood. Derek processed the words without grasping their implications. Scammers often made grandiose claims about corporate connections or executive positions. The more elaborate the lie, the more desperate the individual. Sarah Chen suddenly straightened in her chair, a flicker of recognition crossing her features as she studied Valencia's profile and bearing. Something nagged at her memory, a familiar quality in the woman's posture and the way she maintained composure under pressure. Her fingers moved with increasing urgency across her computer keyboard, navigating through the bank's comprehensive internal directory system and corporate organizational charts. "Oh my God," she whispered, her voice barely audible as the search results populated on her screen. Jessica noticed Sarah's sudden change in demeanor and the color draining from her face. "What's wrong? Sarah, you look like you've seen a ghost." Sarah's face had gone completely pale as she stared at her monitor. She instinctively turned her screen away from Derek and Jessica's line of sight, typing frantically to confirm what her memory had finally recalled. The employee database displayed executive profiles with detailed biographical information, organizational hierarchy charts, and professional photography that left no room for doubt about the identity of the woman standing at their counter. The live stream viewer count approached 5,000. Comments exploded with speculation. "That teller just figured something out." "Look at her face. She knows who this is." "Plot twist incoming." Marcus Williams sensed the shifting energy. "Y'all, something big is about to happen. That young teller looks like she's seen a ghost." Derek remained focused on Valencia, oblivious to Sarah's discovery. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to come with me to a private office where we can properly verify your identity without disrupting other customers." "That won't be necessary," Valencia replied calmly. "It's not a request." Robert Martinez stepped closer, his security training kicking in. The situation felt increasingly volatile, though he couldn't identify the source of tension. Derek's aggressive posture contrasted sharply with the customer's composed responses. "1 minute," Valencia announced. Sarah Chen's hands trembled as she stared at her computer screen. The employee directory displayed a professional headshot that matched the woman standing at Derek's counter. Corporate hierarchy charts showed reporting structures that made her stomach drop. Jessica noticed Sarah's distress. "Sarah, what's going on? You look sick." Sarah tried to speak, but no words came out. She gestured weakly toward her computer screen, then toward Valencia. Derek followed Sarah's gaze, irritation growing. "If you have something to contribute to this security situation, please speak up immediately." Sarah found her voice in a horrified whisper. "Derek, she's the CEO." Derek laughed harshly. "The CEO of what? Her imaginary company?" "No," Sarah's voice cracked. "She's the CEO of First National Bank." The words hit Derek like a physical blow. His confident smirk dissolved as he processed the impossible claim. He spun toward Sarah's computer screen, demanding to see proof of such an outrageous statement. Valencia checked her watch one final time. 30 seconds. The touching stories that define careers often hinge on single moments when reality shifts beneath our feet, revealing that everything we thought we knew was built on assumptions that were never tested against truth. Derek lunged toward Sarah's computer screen with desperate urgency, his hands trembling as he gripped the edge of her desk. The corporate directory displayed a professional headshot of Valencia Sterling, Chief Executive Officer, First National Bank. The photograph showed her in an impeccably tailored Navy business suit, her hair styled in the sophisticated manner expected of senior executives, her expression radiating the quiet confidence and authority that came with controlling a multi-billion-dollar financial institution. The woman standing calmly at his counter matched the corporate headshot exactly. Same facial structure, same intelligent eyes, same composed bearing that he had completely misinterpreted as suspicious behavior. The only difference was her casual Friday attire, which had triggered every unconscious bias in his professional assessment toolkit. "That's impossible," Derek breathed, his voice barely audible as the full magnitude of his catastrophic error became undeniably clear. "The CEO is supposed to be a middle-aged white man?" Valencia's voice carried quiet amusement mixed with the steel-edged authority of someone accustomed to correcting misconceptions about corporate leadership. "That would be my predecessor, Richard Caldwell. He retired 18 months ago after a distinguished 40-year career. The board of directors conducted an extensive nationwide search before selecting me as his replacement." Jessica Morrison stared at the computer screen in absolute horror, her face cycling rapidly through disbelief, recognition, and dawning terror as she processed the implications of the past 20 minutes. The woman she had dismissed as a potential scammer, treated with condescension, and threatened with security intervention was literally her ultimate boss, the person who controlled every aspect of her professional existence, from salary increases to career advancement opportunities to basic employment security. The realization hit her like a physical blow. Every eye roll, every dismissive gesture, every condescending comment had been directed at the most powerful individual in the entire First National Banking Corporation. Her career was likely ending in real-time, broadcast live to thousands of social media viewers who would forever associate her name with discrimination and professional misconduct. "I don't understand," Jessica stammered, her voice cracking with panic and confusion. "Why didn't you say something earlier? Why didn't you identify yourself immediately?" "You never asked who I was," Valencia replied with devastating simplicity. "You made assumptions based entirely on my appearance and drew conclusions about my character, intelligence, and financial status without any supporting evidence whatsoever." The live stream audience exploded with reactions that ranged from satisfaction to outrage to sheer amazement at the dramatic reversal of power dynamics. Marcus Williams struggled to maintain his commentary while processing the magnitude of what he'd captured on camera. "Holy shit, y'all," Marcus whispered into his phone, his voice filled with awe and excitement. "She's the actual CEO of the entire bank. This manager just spent 20 minutes discriminating against his own boss. This is the most incredible plot twist I've ever witnessed. Viewer comments flooded the screen faster than anyone could read them. Plot twist of the century. That manager is so fired. She played the long game perfectly. Justice is finally coming. This is better than any movie. CEO played chess while they played checkers. Derek's world collapsed in real time. Every dismissive word, every condescending gesture, every security threat he'd made replayed in his mind with devastating clarity. He'd just spent 20 minutes publicly humiliating the most powerful person in the entire banking corporation. "Miss Sterling, I had no idea." His voice cracked with panic. Obviously. Robert Martinez, the security guard, stepped back instinctively. He'd been summoned to remove the CEO of the bank. The absurdity of the situation left him speechless. Valencia retrieved her phone and placed a second call. "Margaret, yes, it's time. Please activate the emergency board session for 2:15 p.m. We need to address serious compliance violations immediately." The other customers watched in stunned silence. The businessman who'd been recording lowered his phone, overwhelmed by the dramatic reversal. The elderly woman shook her head in disgust at Derek's obvious panic. Sarah Chen remained frozen at her workstation, staring between her computer screen and Valencia. "I'm so sorry, Ms. Sterling. I recognized you too late. I should have said something sooner." "You're not responsible for your colleague's behavior, Sarah." Derek desperately tried to salvage an impossible situation. "Ms. Sterling, please understand, we were following standard security protocols." "We had no way of knowing." "You had every way of knowing. I provided identification when requested. You chose not to examine it properly." "But your appearance, your clothing." "My clothing is unprofessional?" Derek realized every word deepened his predicament. "No, that's not what I meant." "What exactly did you mean?" The question hung in the air like a legal trap. Derek understood that any response would be recorded, analyzed, and potentially used in termination proceedings. His 30-year career balanced on the edge of a cliff. Jessica attempted her own damage control. "Ms. Sterling, I was simply being cautious about account security. Surely you can understand." "I understand perfectly. You saw a black woman in casual clothes and immediately assumed criminal intent." The word black struck the room like lightning. Everyone had been thinking it, but Valencia's direct acknowledgement removed all pretense of colorblind professionalism. This wasn't about clothing or security protocols. This was about racial profiling in its most blatant form. Marcus Williams captured every word on his live stream. "She said it! She called out exactly what this was about! This is going viral for sure!" The viewer count surged past 8,000 as people shared the stream across social media platforms. Banking. While Black began trending on Twitter within minutes. Valencia consulted her watch. "Time's up. Margaret should be arriving momentarily with the documentation we discussed." "What documentation?" Derek asked weakly. "Termination paperwork, compliance violation reports, legal exposure assessments." The elevator chimed, and Margaret Chen, Sarah's older sister and Valencia's chief of staff, stepped onto the platinum floor carrying a leather briefcase. Her presence confirmed that everything happening was absolutely real and officially sanctioned. "Ms. Sterling, I have the Protocol 7 materials you requested." Margaret's voice carried the efficiency of someone accustomed to crisis management. Protocol 7 was First National's internal code for immediate personnel restructuring due to discrimination violations. Derek had never heard the term because managers who triggered Protocol 7 were typically removed before learning about its existence. Margaret opened her briefcase and extracted several manila folders. Incident documentation, termination letters, legal assessment, and media response template. Everything's prepared for immediate implementation. Jessica's legs nearly buckled. "Termination letters? Plural?" "Your behavior was equally problematic," Valencia explained matter-of-factly. Derek fell into a nearby chair, the weight of consequences crushing his remaining composure. "Please, Miss Sterling, I have a family. I've worked here for 30 years. This was a misunderstanding. This was a choice. You chose to treat me differently because of my race. That choice has consequences." Sarah Chen spoke up nervously. "Ms. Sterling, I didn't participate in—" "You're correct, Sarah. Your employment isn't in question. Though I am curious why you didn't recognize me initially." Sarah's cheeks flushed. "Honestly? I've only seen your photos in corporate newsletters. You look different in casual clothes. I'm ashamed it took me so long to make the connection." "That's understandable. Executive headshots rarely capture how people look in everyday situations." Margaret handed Valencia the first folder. "Derek Phillips, branch manager. 14 formal complaints filed against him in the past 2 years. 3 related to discriminatory treatment of minority customers. HR recommended additional training, which he completed but apparently didn't internalize." Derek's face went ashen. He'd forgotten about those previous incidents, dismissed them as oversensitive customers playing victim. Now they formed a pattern that proved today's behavior wasn't an isolated mistake. Jessica Morrison, senior teller. 9 complaints in 18 months. 5 specifically mentioned condescending treatment based on customer appearance. Jessica sank into a chair beside Derek. Her career was ending in public humiliation, broadcast live to thousands of viewers who would judge her forever based on these 20 minutes. Valencia accepted the folder and reviewed its contents. "Both employees violated Section 12 of our customer service standards, Section 8 of our anti-discrimination policy, and federal banking regulations regarding equal treatment." Margaret nodded professionally. "Legal exposure is estimated at $2.3 million if formal complaints are filed. Media exposure could impact stock price and corporate reputation significantly." The live stream audience had grown to over 12,000 viewers. Comments expressed everything from satisfaction to outrage to amazement at the dramatic reversal. Marcus Williams provided running commentary. "This is better than any movie, y'all. Real justice happening in real time." Valencia closed the folder and looked directly at Derek and Jessica. "However, I'm not interested in destroying lives. I'm interested in changing systems." Hope flickered in Derek's eyes. "Does that mean—" "It means you have a choice. Accept termination with full severance and positive references, or face formal discrimination charges with legal consequences." Jessica found her voice. "What about learning from this? Second chances?" Valencia's expression remained neutral. "Some positions require zero tolerance for discrimination. Management is one of them. You demonstrated judgment that cannot be retrained." Robert Martinez, still processing everything, finally spoke. "Ms. Sterling, I apologize for responding to a security call against you. If I'd known, you responded appropriately to a manager's request. You were professional throughout. Your job isn't in jeopardy." The life stories that truly matter often reveal themselves in moments when power dynamics shift completely, exposing who people really are when they believe no one important is watching. Corporate Showdown, 1,500 words. Valencia accepted the termination documents but didn't open them immediately. Instead, she walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown's financial district. Her casual reflection contrasted sharply with the corporate towers stretching toward the horizon. "This wasn't random," she began, her voice carrying the authority that had been hidden beneath 20 minutes of patient endurance. "For the past 6 months, I've been conducting unannounced evaluations at all 47 First National branches nationwide." Derek's remaining hope evaporated. This hadn't been an accidental encounter or mistaken identity crisis. Valencia had deliberately tested their branch, and they had failed spectacularly. "You were testing us?" Jessica's voice barely rose above a whisper. "I was measuring our institutional character. How we treat customers when we believe no one important is watching reveals our true values." Margaret Chen opened her laptop and projected data onto the conference room's wall screen. Numbers filled the display with devastating precision. Branch performance analysis, Margaret announced. Meridian Avenue location ranks 47th out of 47 branches in customer satisfaction. Dead last. The statistics painted a damning picture. Customer complaints had increased 347% over 18 months. Revenue declined $2.8 million during the same period. Most significantly, 73% of complaints cited discriminatory treatment based on race, age, or perceived economic status. Derek stared at the numbers in shock. Those statistics can't be accurate. We follow all protocols. You follow protocols selectively, Valencia interrupted. Sarah, please show Derek the customer feedback database. Sarah Chen's fingers moved reluctantly across her keyboard. The screen filled with complaint summaries that Derek had either dismissed or buried in administrative paperwork. Manager treated me like a criminal for wearing work clothes. Teller assumed I was confused about account requirements. Security called because I asked about investment options. Staff spoke to me like I couldn't understand basic banking. The complaints formed a clear pattern. Customers who didn't match the branch's narrow definition of appropriate wealth received substandard treatment, while others faced outright hostility. Each complaint represents a customer we lost, Valencia explained. Each lost customer represents revenue decline. Each revenue decline represents job security threats for every employee. Margaret advanced to the next slide. Legal exposure analysis. Current pending complaints could result in $8.7 million in settlement costs. Federal banking compliance violations carry additional penalties ranging from $50,000 to $500,000 per incident. The live stream audience had grown to over 15,000 viewers. Marcus Williams struggled to capture the full scope of data being presented while maintaining commentary. Y'all, this is like watching a corporate autopsy. These numbers are devastating. Comments flooded the screen. They kept receipts on everything. This branch was discrimination central. Justice served with spreadsheets. Valencia returned to face Derek and Jessica directly. However, termination alone doesn't solve systemic problems. We need fundamental cultural transformation. Derek grasped at any possibility of redemption. Ms. Sterling, if you give us another chance, I'm not giving you another chance. I'm giving this branch another chance. That requires new leadership. She opened the termination folder and reviewed its contents methodically. Derek Phillips, 30 years of service, currently earning $127,000 annually plus bonuses. Severance package includes 18 months full salary, complete benefits continuation, and neutral employment references. Derek's relief was palpable. The severance offer far exceeded standard termination packages. Jessica Morrison, 3 years of service earning $67,000 annually. Severance includes 12 months full salary, benefits continuation, and professional development funding for career transition. Jessica began crying, not from devastation but from unexpected relief. She'd expected immediate termination with minimal compensation. "Why are you being so generous?" Derek asked quietly. "Because punishment without opportunity for growth perpetuates cycles of ignorance. You'll both receive mandatory bias training and conflict resolution counseling as part of your severance agreements." Margaret presented the final data set. Branch restructuring timeline. New management team implementation requires 4 weeks. Staff retraining program launches immediately. Customer service monitoring systems activate within 10 days. Valencia walked to Sarah Chen's workstation. "Sarah, you demonstrated integrity by ultimately speaking truth despite social pressure. That's leadership material." Sarah looked up in surprise. "Ms. Sterling? How would you feel about interim branch management responsibilities while we recruit permanent leadership?" I'm only 24. I've never managed anyone." "Age doesn't determine leadership capacity. Character does. You showed character today." The offer represented a dramatic promotion from teller to management track. Sarah's salary would increase substantially, and her career trajectory would shift from routine banking to executive development. Robert Martinez approached Valencia hesitantly. "Ms. Sterling, I need to apologize for the security response. I should have questioned the situation more carefully." "Robert, you responded professionally to a manager's request. However, I'm curious about your observation skills. Did anything seem unusual about this situation?" Robert considered the question seriously. "Honestly, you were too calm. Most people getting hassled by bank security show stress or anger. You acted like someone used to handling pressure." "Excellent observation. We're implementing new security training that emphasizes situational awareness and de-escalation techniques. Would you be interested in leading that program?" The security guard's eyes widened. Leading corporate training would mean substantial pay increases and career advancement opportunities he'd never imagined. Valencia checked her phone. "The emergency board session begins in 15 minutes. Margaret, please ensure all documentation is prepared for immediate implementation." "Already completed, Ms. Sterling. HR has been notified, new job postings are prepared, and the media response template is ready for any inquiries." Derek signed his severance agreement with trembling hands. 30 years of banking career had ended, but the generous terms offered dignity and financial security during transition. Jessica signed her documents with similar relief. The public humiliation had been devastating, but Valencia's approach focused on learning rather than destruction. "Ms. Sterling," Derek said as he prepared to leave, "I want you to know that I'm genuinely sorry. I see now that my behavior was wrong, and I'm grateful for your mercy." "Derek, transformation requires acknowledgement of mistakes. You've taken the first step. The training programs will help you continue growing." As Derek and Jessica collected their personal belongings, the live stream audience witnessed something unprecedented: corporate accountability implemented with both justice and compassion. Marcus Williams summarized the extraordinary scene. "Y'all just watched discrimination get addressed at the highest level. This is how change actually happens, not through anger, but through smart leadership." The viewer count peaked at 18,000 as social media shares exploded across platforms. #banking, while black evolved into #leadership done. Right as people recognized Valencia's balanced approach to systemic change. Valencia addressed the remaining staff members. "This branch will become a model for inclusive banking practices. Every employee here has the opportunity to be part of that transformation." The corporate showdown had concluded not with destruction but with reconstruction, dismantling discriminatory systems while building frameworks for genuine equality and professional growth. 3 weeks later, the Meridian Avenue branch had undergone a transformation so comprehensive that banking industry analysts were conducting case studies on its rapid cultural evolution. Sarah Chen stood confidently behind the manager's desk in an office that had been completely redesigned to promote transparency and accessibility, reviewing customer satisfaction reports that showed improvements so dramatic they initially seemed too good to be true. The daily operational rhythm had changed entirely under her leadership. Morning briefings focused on inclusive service standards, cultural awareness training, and proactive customer engagement strategies that would have seemed revolutionary under Derek's management philosophy. Staff members participated in role-playing exercises designed to identify unconscious bias, practiced de-escalation techniques for tense situations, and learned to recognize the difference between legitimate security concerns and discriminatory assumptions. "Morning briefing in 5 minutes," Sarah announced to her diverse team of tellers, loan officers, and customer service representatives. The daily meetings had become opportunities for continuous learning rather than top-down directives, with staff members sharing experiences, discussing challenging interactions, and collaborating on solutions that prioritized customer dignity alongside security protocols. The technological infrastructure supporting these cultural changes was equally impressive. Every customer interaction was monitored through AI-powered analysis systems that detected discriminatory language patterns, tone variations, and behavioral indicators that suggested bias. Staff members received real-time feedback through discrete earpieces, allowing immediate course correction when conversations showed signs of veering toward discriminatory treatment. Marcus Williams returned to the branch for a comprehensive follow-up live stream that would serve as a sequel to his viral original video. His initial recording had generated over 2.8 million views across multiple social media platforms, making him an inadvertent spokesperson for banking equality and corporate accountability. The comment sections had become forums for people sharing their own discrimination experiences and celebrating Valencia's approach to systemic change. "What's good, everybody?" Marcus addressed his camera with the confidence of someone who had accidentally become a social media influencer. 3 weeks ago, this place was basically discrimination headquarters. Today, we're going to see if anything actually changed or if this was just corporate damage control theater. He approached the same teller window where Jessica Morrison had previously worked, now staffed by Maria Santos, a bilingual customer service representative whose hiring reflected the branch's new commitment to serving its diverse community demographic. Her greeting radiated genuine warmth and professional competence. "Good morning. Welcome to First National. How can I help you today?" Maria's smile was authentic, her posture open and welcoming. Marcus decided to test the waters with the same casual appearance that had triggered the original discrimination. "I'm wearing jeans and sneakers today. You cool with that, or do I need to dress differently to get service?" Maria's laugh was genuine and warm. "Your comfort matters to us, and we want you to feel welcome exactly as you are. What banking services do you need assistance with today?" The interaction proceeded smoothly, professionally, and without any hint of judgment based on appearance, economic assumptions, or cultural background. Marcus's followers witnessed the stark contrast between the old branch culture and the new inclusive environment that Valencia's leadership had created. Meanwhile, Valencia reviewed implementation reports from her corporate office. The Sterling Protocol, named after her transformative leadership approach, was being adopted across all First National branches. The protocol required 4 core elements: mandatory bias recognition training every 90 days, diverse hiring requirements ensuring 40% minority representation in management roles within 18 months, anonymous customer reporting systems accessible through mobile apps, and AI-powered interaction monitoring with quarterly bias assessments. Legal exposure had decreased dramatically. 0 discrimination complaints were filed system-wide during the 3 weeks following implementation. Customer satisfaction scores increased an average of 67% across all monitored branches. Margaret Chen entered Valencia's office with quarterly reports. "The Meridian branch results are remarkable. Customer retention increased 89% since restructuring. New account openings rose 134%. What about industry response? 12 major banking institutions have contacted us about licensing the Sterling Protocol. They want to implement similar systems to avoid their own discrimination scandals." Valencia nodded with satisfaction. Systemic change required industry-wide adoption, not isolated improvements at individual branches. Derek Phillips appeared at the branch one Tuesday morning, not as manager but as customer. His bias training program had provided profound insights into unconscious prejudice patterns he'd never recognized. Sarah Chen approached him professionally. "Mr. Phillips, how can we assist you today?" "I need to close my account and transfer funds to another bank," Derek said quietly. "Of course. May I ask if there's anything we could have done differently to retain your business?" The question struck Derek with irony. 3 weeks earlier, he'd never asked departing customers about their experiences. Customer retention had been someone else's responsibility. "Actually, you're doing everything right now. I'm moving because I need a fresh start somewhere that doesn't know my history." Sarah processed his request with dignity and efficiency. No judgment, no references to past conflicts. Professional service regardless of personal history. Jessica Morrison had enrolled in community college business management courses using her severance package. The bias training had revealed how her own childhood experiences with economic insecurity had led to judging others based on appearance and perceived social status. She planned to return to banking eventually, but with fundamentally different perspectives on customer service and human dignity. Robert Martinez now traveled between First National branches, implementing security training programs that emphasized de-escalation and cultural sensitivity. His promotion to corporate security training director represented the largest career advancement of his life. The anonymous customer reporting app had processed over 200 submissions in 3 weeks. Most reported positive interactions, but 17 flagged concerning behavior that was immediately addressed through additional training. Valencia received regular updates on the app's effectiveness. Real-time feedback allowed rapid response to potential problems before they escalated into formal complaints or viral social media incidents. The transformation extended beyond First National. #banking. While Black had evolved into broader conversations about workplace discrimination across industries, Valencia received speaking invitations from conferences, universities, and corporate leadership seminars. However, she remained focused on sustainable change rather than publicity. The touching stories that emerge from systemic transformation require consistent effort over time, not momentary attention spikes. The Federal Banking Commission dispatched a specialized investigation team to conduct a comprehensive review of First National's newly implemented discrimination prevention protocols. Their preliminary assessment indicated that the Sterling Protocol demonstrated measurable effectiveness in reducing bias-related incidents while improving overall customer satisfaction metrics. Commission officials suggested that Valencia's systematic approach could serve as the foundation for mandatory regulatory requirements applicable to all federally chartered financial institutions nationwide. Valencia's innovative methodology had successfully proven that addressing institutional bias through comprehensive education, accountability measures, and genuine opportunity creation rather than punitive punishment alone could generate lasting cultural transformation. The Meridian Avenue branch, which had previously ranked as the absolute worst performer in customer satisfaction among all 47 First National locations, was rapidly becoming recognized as an industry-leading model for inclusive banking practices that other institutions studied, analyzed, and attempted to replicate across their own organizational structures. Employee morale surveys showed dramatic improvement. Staff members felt empowered to provide excellent service without fear of making judgment errors about customer qualifications or intentions. The revolution had succeeded not through anger or revenge, but through intelligent leadership that recognized human dignity as the foundation of all sustainable business practices. 6 months after that transformative Friday afternoon, Valencia Sterling stood before the American Banking Association's annual conference. The auditorium held over 2,000 financial industry leaders, each seeking solutions to discrimination challenges plaguing their institutions. Dignity isn't negotiable in business, Valencia began her keynote address. When we assume customer worth based on appearance, we don't just harm individuals, we damage our own profitability and reputation. The presentation screen displayed First National's remarkable transformation data. System-wide discrimination complaints, 0. Customer satisfaction increases, 89% average across all branches. Revenue growth, $47 million attributed directly to improved inclusive practices. Her personal story resonated deeply with the audience. Valencia had grown up in foster care, the first in her family to attend college. Every assumption about her potential had been wrong. Every barrier placed in her path had strengthened her determination to create systems where talent and character mattered more than appearance or background. The Meridian Avenue branch had become banking industry legend. Sarah Chen, now permanent branch manager, had implemented customer service innovations that other banks studied and replicated. Her team consistently ranked among the highest in both satisfaction and performance metrics. Marcus Williams had parlayed his viral live stream into a consulting career, helping companies identify unconscious bias in customer service practices. His original video remained a training tool used by organizations worldwide. Derek Phillips completed his bias education program and accepted a position with a credit union focused on underserved communities. His experience with discrimination, both perpetrating and confronting it, provided unique insights for serving customers who'd faced similar treatment elsewhere. Jessica Morrison graduated from business school and joined a community development financial institution. Her transformation from someone who judged customers by appearance to someone who advocated for financial inclusion represented the personal growth possible when people confront their biases honestly. The Sterling Protocol had been adopted by 127 financial institutions across North America. Federal regulators were developing mandatory bias prevention requirements based on Valencia's framework. The life stories of thousands of customers improved because one woman chose transformation over retaliation. Valencia's philosophy remained simple. Real change happens when leaders choose education over punishment, opportunity over revenge, and systemic solutions over individual blame. Her impact extended far beyond banking. Universities taught case studies about her leadership approach. Business schools analyzed her decision-making process. Corporate boards recruited executives who demonstrated similar capabilities for turning crisis into cultural transformation. The Black stories that had shaped her journey, growing up in foster care, facing discrimination despite achievements, being underestimated because of race and gender, became sources of strength rather than bitterness. Each challenge had prepared her for this moment when she could create lasting change. As Valencia concluded her conference presentation, she issued a challenge to every leader present. How will you respond when faced with discrimination in your organization? Will you hide behind policies and procedures, or will you have the courage to transform systems that perpetuate inequality? The standing ovation lasted 4 minutes. Your turn to make a difference. Have you witnessed discrimination in banking, retail, or workplace settings? Share your experiences in the comments below. Your voice matters in creating awareness and driving change. What would you have done in Valencia's position? How can we all become better allies in fighting bias and discrimination? Subscribe for more inspiring Black stories of leadership, transformation, and triumph over adversity. Hit the notification bell to never miss real-life stories that challenge us to be better. Share this video with someone who needs to see that quiet power and intelligent action can create revolutionary change. Together, we can build a world where everyone receives the dignity and respect they deserve.